hello, and thanks for tuning in. As always, this is Reverend JR, and today we're going to answer some questions. I saw Cosmological and some other people did a response to this particular video you're going to see here, and I figured, why not? I'll give it a shot.
Hello, you've reached ChristianApologist.com, and I'm S.J. Thomason, and today I'm going to present to you 11 questions that atheists cannot answer.
Why not, though? Why can't I answer them? I'm going to. Is it taboo if I do what you tell me not to do? Am I being naughty? Is this like a tree fort where, it has a sign out front that says, "My friends only"? Except, the fort is questions, and the sign is, well, the same, actually.
The first question.
Question the first.
How do you explain why the early Christian martyrs preached for decades saying they saw the risen Christ?
Counter question. How do you explain Harry Potter being set in London? Plenty of people in the book told of their interactions with him. I don't ask this to be facetious. There's tons of fan fiction out there as well. I'm not going to link you to any because a lot of it's dirty, but it's there. Plenty of people have written stories about interacting with Harry Potter. I'm saying some old dudes could also have written a book about things that, didn't actually happen. Given the lack of evidence we have concerning Jesus, there's no reason one can't simply accept it's, just a story. As sure as George Washington existed, he certainly didn't chop down the cherry tree and then, the parable about only telling the truth. Paul Bunyan, same kind of legend. He's probably based on a real person who used to chop down trees and had an ox, maybe. But, there was definitely no giant blue ox just hanging around in the mountains of Appalachia. Paul Bunyan wasn't 30 foot tall, How could anyone have ever claimed to see any of these figures if they aren't real?
2. How do you explain the rise of Christianity to between 5 and 6 million by 313 when it was finally legalized from such humble roots?
How do you explain the rise of any religion? People will believe things regardless of the merit of the claims. Look at modern day news cycles even. Snopes exists for this very reason. Because people will naturally select the narrative that they think best matches reality, even if it's a complete fabrication. Anti-vaxxers, homeopaths, ghost hunters, so on. They want to believe, so they find things that make them believe more, rather than seeking out anything that might serve to alter their confirmation bias. More importantly, why were other religions like those of the ancient Egyptians or Akkadians, for example, why were they so big before? I mean, if your God is the one true God, then why wasn't Göbekli Tepe erected to him? And why did he wait another 10,000 or so years to send his son to rectify it? Why wasn't Stonehenge built to worship Yahweh? Hard questions.
3. What powered inflation of the universe?
Well, as I've tried explaining in other videos, the inflation wasn't powered by anything. It's the literal expansion of time and space. You don't need space if things are, infinitely dense. Because, they don't take up any. You don't need time if you don't have that space. Because no space means nothing can move. An imbalance of some sort caused space and time to start interacting and separating and that kind of thing. And now the forces and particles exist. It's entirely possible there have been infinite singularities before this one, but it doesn't matter. Because nothing from them can affect us. The inflation happened because it happened. And that's all the more we need to know at present. If you can demonstrate how the particles and forces weren't established by this expansion, please do.
4. Why are humans spiritual?
I'm not sure that we are. We are contemplative. We experience things, in our brains. And sometimes our brains act funny and we think things are spiritual when they are demonstrably not so. This question is too open-ended to address here. Does she mean spiritual as in communing with dead people? Does she mean that we have emotions and they give us spirit, life, energy, pep, or some other euphemism for feelings or whatever? Does she mean something completely different?
And now for something completely different.
Even the Bible doesn't nail this one down.
5. Where did consciousness come from?
That is an excellent question. We can show the various stages of perception of the various senses we have in other extant creatures. Fish don't feel like we do, but most have nociception, for example. They feel things and react to them, but they're not painful to them generally. Other mammals seem to lack prescience, sentience, and so on, but seem to have the same basic emotions in common with us. Very simple things, like most of the cells and organs in our body, do not seem to have their own soul or consciousness or whatever. To use a somewhat popular example, if you die, but manage to donate all your major organs, including your brain, and they each go to a different person, does your spirit or whatever go with them? If your brain is removed, but your body is on life support, are you dead? These are tough philosophical questions and require more than the time I can give here for this specific response. Maybe in another video.
6. How do you explain what some have called our sixth sense?
Which sense is our sixth one, though? Is it our third eye? Is it precognizance, empathy, and so on? Is it a form of telekinesis or psychokinesis or some other sort of mental abstraction? Is it a proprioception that lets us know where our body parts are relative to one another without seeing them? Is it equilibrioception that allows us to find our balance so we don't fall when we're walking, for example? Is it that nociception that we were talking about with the fish? Is it maybe thermoception that lets us tell the temperature of things? Our bodies can be easily fooled into thinking we don't know things that we do. The fact that we occasionally think things before we do them is just a function of abstraction and ability that our brain has to tell us about the world.
7. How did the Earth overcome what MIT and Stanford physicists call statistically miraculous odds to have habitable conditions?
The closest thing I can find to this is Littlewood's law, and it deals with how statistically improbable things happen with much greater frequency than our brains might tend to perceive. Specifically with odds of 1 in a million, as it were, you could expect something miraculous, about once a month, even in your own experience. Littlewood was a Cambridge professor, though, but the fact that this lady asking these questions doesn't understand this context, it's fascinating. How can it happen, she asks, when the thing she's citing spells it out? It can happen given a very, very long time to do so. And our universe has been around a very, very long time.
8. Why does humanity cherish humility and honesty over pride and deceit?
Humanity doesn't do that. I just watched a video from ADV China discussing how face is a very important thing to have. Pride is a driving factor in much of human culture in general. People have pride and don't want to be wrong. People have pride and don't want to lose face when an atheist does actually answer their questions. So they just claim that atheists can't answer them. Then when we do answer them, you don't lose face, because then you can just claim it's not the answer from your book that we give you. And you can keep on spouting your nonsense. Like how I'm supposed to believe your book is the Word of God. Even though you don't seem to, when you ignore parts like Timothy 2:11 or so, which explicitly state that women should be quiet and learn in all subservience, and not claim authority over a man or not teach. And always, ask the men for advice, but you'd much rather instruct us in the way to think by ignoring it in the same way that we do.
9. Why do almost all feel compelled to do what's right by helping neighbors? Why is there a norm of reciprocity?
For starters, we evolved that way. We selectively removed the majority of violent, uncooperative people throughout history. We stick these people in jails or, simply kill them outright when they do things that are detrimental to society. Everything from the Code of Hammurabi to our modern laws demonstrates this. This is more a question for why there is law than why I'm an atheist. The first laws are far older than the Bible, after all, and didn't seem to need Yahweh's intervention to exist. They did help the people who invented Yahweh to lay some moral framework, indicative of the time the Bible and other books were written, though. Fascinating.
10. What is our greater purpose?
Greater than what? Greater than ourselves? The only purpose of life seems to be to make more life. Living in peaceful societies helps us accomplish this, and we're cognizant enough to realize it. If you're going to tell me that our greater purpose is to worship someone for all eternity who sends people to hell on a regular basis, then I'm sorry, but I cannot agree. If you are the sort of person who would worship someone who separates people forever and casts those he deems unfit into eternal torment, then maybe I don't want to take advice on higher purposes from you. That sounds absolutely insane. You're telling me you could enjoy yourself in heaven knowing that the majority of people were suffering eternal torment in hell, and their only transgression is disbelief. How is this a higher purpose in your mind?
And 11. Why is there evil in the world?
This is an unpopular opinion of mine, but I don't believe in things like good and evil. I believe there are good and bad actions, but I don't believe there are objective, tangible concepts like good and evil. People can do bad things, but I don't believe that any devil or force of evil or whatever is compelling them to do so. In exactly the same way, I don't think God caused someone to win a sports ball game or whatever. This is very important, because once you start to understand that people are actually acting of their own accord, then you can start to understand how to fix actual actions. Otherwise, if there is evil and your God created everything, then your God allows evil to exist and also created it. And I don't believe in a higher purpose of worshiping someone who could have chosen not to make evil in the first place, and then just kind of went, nah, let's make evil. Let's let evil exist. Let's let bad things happen just for shits and giggles, I guess.
Thank you very much. This is ChristianApologist.com. Goodbye.
I got to thinking, that's a really weird voicemail. I wonder if they want me to answer all these questions before I let them know about the ice cream social next weekend or not. Anyway, if you enjoyed that, click that like button. Don't forget to subscribe for more. Click the little bell for the notifications that probably aren't going to work either. Leave a comment down below and share this video so others can do the same. If you want to know how to get your name right here on my screen, please check out my Patreon. If you're curious about that beginning of the universe stuff, my recent blog post on how rocks crack will be of great interest to you. Link also down below. And as always, this has been Reverend JR, signing off.